Today we are looking at John chapter 13, verses 21 to 32, Jesus' prediction of Judas' betrayal in fulfillment of Psalm 41:9. The setting is Passion Week, Jesus' toughest week yet. And in this narrative, we see one of the darkest moments in Jesus' earthly ministry. There with his disciples in the upper room in Jerusalem, this is the night that Jesus would be betrayed. This was a dark moment for Jesus. And yet the darkness was not from attacks by the Jewish religious leaders. No, the darkness of this moment was because Jesus would be betrayed by one of his own, one who had walked with him for 3 years and who had been a first-hand eyewitness to both his words and his works. This was a dark moment for Jesus. This was his toughest week yet. And Jesus knew the one who would betray him. And yet he demonstrates perhaps one of his greatest acts of grace and love, extending to Judas one last opportunity for God's forgiveness. There, seated next to the Savior in the place of honor, Jesus offers to Judas that first piece of unleavened bread, that part of the Passover meal, the bread rolled up with pieces of lamb, dipped in a sauce of bitter herbs, taken and received by the recipient, signifying receiving God's salvation through his promised Messiah. And yet, we read only that Judas took the bread, that Satan entered him, that he went out immediately, and that it was night. You know, in a 24-hour period, night is that time where there is no light. And in the absence of light, darkness overwhelms. Darkness was not nearly that night the same darkness that was in Judas's heart. And because of the darkness of sin in your heart and in mine, Jesus offers to us the same forgiveness through his grace and love that he offered to Judas. You know, in this COVID-19 pandemic, government officials and healthcare officials are telling us that we are now facing our toughest week yet. Click on the song below titled, "Christ is Mine Forever," and think on the words, "Mine are tears of sorrow, darkness not yet understood." You know, it was the English theologian Thomas Fuller who wrote, "The darkest hour is just before the dawn." The darkest hour of this COVID-19 coronavirus is just before the dawn of recovery from our current crisis. And this Good Friday, reflect upon the necessity of Jesus' darkest hour being just before the dawn of his resurrection.